And we are live, Laura.
Yay! Good morning. How are you, Jennifer?
Good. How are you?
So good. It's good to see you.
It is, and this is like this is kind of a new adventure for you. So I'm excited to see how it unfolds.
Oh, we are jumping, or I am jumping.
Yes.
You've jumped multiple times,
Yes.
so it's going to be a journey today. I'm so excited.
Yes. So those of you, I know we got people that probably are kind of slowly going to join in and figure out what this idea is that we've been kind of teasing and stuff like that. So if you can, we already have people. If you can, will you just let us know you're there? Maybe where you're joining us from. That would be great. And so we can get started and kind of know who's out there, because we've got some stuff to talk about today. And we know that the people that are joining and the people that we've already talked about, that, we've told kind of some of this stuff, they've got a lot of cool perspectives. And so I think they're going to add to this conversation and really help us kind of, where it's going to go. What does it look like? I'm excited about that.
We need you and I need you. So
yes.
Good morning. Oh, I see Buddy jumping on too. And good morning, Megan. Tell us where you're coming from, where you're located at. We want to know where you're listening from.
Yes, Megan's Jennifer. California. That's kind of your.
It's early. Yes. Yeah, it's early there.
I know. We've kind of started training her. She's been jumping on, and so she's just kind of now going, I'm just going to get up early.
The reps of waking up early.
Yes,
for sure. Oh, we have someone from Dana from, is that Minnesota?
Minnesota.
Awesome. Good morning. So glad you're here.
Yes. And so as people are coming on, Laura, I know like this is your kind of first adventure doing some stuff like this. And so I kind of want to give a little background maybe on you and I. And
yeah, let's do it.
Because we're going to talk a lot about a lot of things today. And so maybe if you can share, some of these people know you, some of them may be learning more about you. If you can kind of share who you are, kind of what you do, and maybe just what triggered this conversation between you and I, and, maybe why we're here today.
Well, I just say, I don't, as you know, Jennifer, well, I don't go into any space or room and sit still very well. I don't. It's hard for me to sit still. And so that's been my journey for the last many years in the construction industry specifically, but everything that touches that too, part of that built environment. And that's been really, my background is in marketing and communications, right? And my role right now is specifically marketing for a construction firm. But again, I don't sit in any space or any industry. I don't sit still. And so I've plugged myself into multiple organizations and environments because I am always curious about how everything connects together and how everything interacts with each other. And so really that's what's gotten me here today, is just one, we had mutual connections many years ago, social circle that brought us together. I am so grateful for good mentors out there. Shout out to good mentors.
Steve Lucy,
you are one of those for me too. Grateful for those mentors that have impacted my life so much and that actually connected even us.
Yes.
I was thinking back, we have photos from being in the same industry events, but we didn't even know each other. Like there's a photo, and it's so funny to like think how it didn't take very long, but it wasn't like we met each other right away. So how important it is for people to make connections for other people.
Yes.
That was what connected us together, which eventually led to us, working together.
Yes. And I think that piece is key. I think we talk about like it's building relationships, and I need to build relationships because later on down the road, I don't know when those relationships are going to help foster something bigger for me. But I also, and everyone knows like that's one of the things that I love to do is connect people. Mm-hmm. And we both have a mutual friend that we both had kind of relationships with, and she said, hey, you should meet this person. And like, I don't think she even knows what she did when she created that introduction, because I want to say, Laura, like we did cross paths, but as soon as we like got to connect, it was instant. It was instant. And it was like energies and ideas. And a little similar to like how Jesse and I connected a little bit, just like as soon as you meet somebody that is your person and someone that is in like looks at things the way you do, energies match, like you just, it's a different conversation when you're around them. And you are one of those people. And so I'm excited for kind of some of the stuff that's been in your head, a lot of our conversations, and now having those on a bigger platform and getting other people to kind of chime in and help us as to, we have an idea where I don't think we even have it fully vetted, which is the reason we're launching it this way, is we want to get input, but also we know it's probably going to take, kind of could take a mind of its own.
Yeah, it's going to take a mind of its own. But again, for those jumping on, because we know that some are slow to jump on.
Yes.
Drop where you're listening from. We'd love to see you on here. Woo-hoo! And yes, good morning, Jesse. We're glad you are here. We are so glad you're here.
Yes. And then who's this? Laura, who's this?
Steve Lucy?
Yes.
Steve is a great dear friend of mine and a dear mentor. We're so grateful for all of his support, not for just S&PS, an industry organization, but to me personally. I am so grateful for people who are willing to wake up early in the morning, just willing to like listen and talk about big things that are impacting people and this industry. Steve is willing to really like pull things apart and ask questions. And we're going to talk about divides today. And I'd say he's one of those people that's willing to kind of like recognize that there are divides and lean into them, and make a change about it. But grateful for his engineering, him leading a great engineering firm here in the DFW area.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, well, so Steve Martin, he is actually a person that is very engaged with a lot of the stuff that Jesse and I do. And we have literally given him a title. Laura, his title.
What's his title?
Our No BS tribe is the chief marketeer.
Oh, love it.
Because of how he promotes, how he communicates, how he engages, how he connects, how he goes out. And I mean, it's so much of what that role does that very early on when he was out there promoting stuff, we just said, oh my gosh, so we actually gave him a role in our community.
That is awesome. I love it. I love it.
Oh, we know who this is.
Yes.
Yes. And so
good morning.
So going back to what Laura said, we connected and we were able to really bridge form a friendship. And then, luck may have it, through some of that, Laura ended up coming and working at the firm I was at. So we are currently working at the same firm, and Rob works for the same firm that we do. And Rob, thank you for being here. One, because I know he's got some things and stuff in his head and some things that maybe he's tackling. And I think this will be a good conversation.
Oh, Steve, you're cute. You should be blushing. Awesome. Okay, so we did some big things this week.
We did.
Yes, this is one of them, but I'm talking about earlier this week. Tell everyone about where you spoke this week.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And so, and that kind of goes into some of our, how are we bridging some of these divides, which we're going to dig into. So again, keep adding your names. And if you're jumping on, let us know where you're from. We're not going to push you too hard, but we do want to know where you are. And then also, as we start talking, if you are so inclined to add to the conversation, please do. But this week, so I went to Austin, which is a kind of a market in between two of our really big offices. And so I got introduced to that group through Jolsona Thomas, who works for Rosendin and the Rosendin Foundation. And she invited me to come speak to their NAWIC Austin chapter. And it was cool because it was a group of ladies. And it's not very often I go into a room and I don't know anybody.
And this was one of them.
Yeah, this was one where I went in and got to talk. It was really cool because I got to talk about facilitating. I got to talk about generational differences. I got to talk about the importance of respect for people. So the things that I'm very passionate about and things that I bring into most conversations, I got to talk to a group of ladies across the AEC industry that are in different roles, whether it's department roles in the field, leadership roles, people coming in at entry level, like they were all, but got to talk to them about how they can be empowered and how they can take some of that, own some of that, and what does that look like? And then I got to use my quote, which the one that you kind of tagged and then you reposted when I last year shared it with the Dallas Business Journal group, is that the status quo will get you promoted. And there's nothing wrong with that. So if you follow the status quo and you do everything that's been laid out in front of you, you'll get promoted, you'll have a career, and you'll probably make good money. But if you want to do something that no one's ever done, then you're going to have to be willing to go out and be a little uncomfortable, get a little scared, and take some jumps and do something to be able to create something that no one's ever done. And this is one of those things, Laura.
This is one of them. We're jumping.
I
We are
know.
full on jumping.
Yes. Good morning, Mike. So
well, I love that you went down to Austin and you got to speak to a room of new faces, because that's more opportunity for people to meet you, because that's I mean, they need that connection.
What about you? You were at an event this week too.
Yeah. So, well, first, earlier in the week, I got to sit in and support our SMPS new board that's coming on.
Nice.
And transitioning coming off. And that was Katie Hertel's, and shout out to her. She's done an amazing job this past year as president. And then I'm so excited for Matt Stevenson to take over the reins coming in September for a new year, and just excited to see that energy of that new board and their excitement for what the future and the impact of the industry that they're going to have. So love that. But also the LCI event, the DSW co-op did a phenomenal job. I loved it. And shout out to Todd Wynn. And I got to see Steve Moore and many others that are just leading in technology, innovation, and development, that if you are not part of that local co-op, join, because there are some amazing opportunities to just be with like-minded people. So I loved it. And one of the things that really stood out to me that was talked about, which are things that I've heard exactly said before, but I think it was just the perfect timing of that reminder of something a truth I already knew, which was about our industry. We are really good at solving problems. Like, we are really good at it. And I would say this group of people here, they are professional firefighters, and not to dismiss actual firefighters that put out actual fires that burn. I'm talking about people who are just really good at coming in and putting out problems. Like, we are built of that, especially in our industry and in the built environment, because things change really fast and happen really fast. But the mind shift that Todd reminded us of, which is a truth that already ran deep inside me, was let's stop being the firefighters and let's be the problem preventers. Let's be the one that can sniff it, that can anticipate it, and that can see it before the emblems even start to warm up, right? And are we doing that? Are we willing to lean in and, I would say, have those hard conversations to actually prevent the problems from ever occurring, right? And to make change. So that is where, what are we doing? And so I think it spoke to me, one, because of the timing. It aligned with everything that we've been talking about, because what we've been seeing is that there's a lot of divides. But before we go into all the divides in the industry, can we ask the question, just what is a divide?
We can, because that's going to feed into, Megan, don't worry, a little bit of patience, because we're going to get there. And it's not just an easy answer as to what this idea is, because it's something we're trying to look at to build, and it's bigger than this screen. And so, and it's bigger than just one company or one firm, or even, one contractor or one, it's bigger than this. And I think a lot of the stuff that we're hoping we're going to talk about today is going to help people see the importance of some of these conversations. But bigger than that, Laura, a community of people talking about it. So not just you and I on a platform, once a month, whatever that is, but right now we know these things are here. We know that there's a disconnect, and yet we continue to talk about the issues, the problems, and we
Mhm.
are not having very deep conversations around how do we bridge those so that we don't continue to have to address them.
Mhm.
And so
Definitely.
again, what is a divide? So that's kind of steer kind of this conversation of what we're trying to get to. And so our question to you is, what is a divide? So when we think about a divide, whether, and again, it is within your firm, it is within your team, within your department, within the industry, like within, I mean, just there's a lot of opportunities in the built environment. And we don't want to limit it to just the people part, because we know there's connections and there's things like that. But what is a divide? So Laura, I'm going to start with you. What is for
Yeah.
you when we use that word, because that's kind of part of what we're kind of launching today. Part of the definition is like bridging some of those divides. What is a divide?
Well, let's go more elementary,
Okay.
right? Like just a divide is something that separates something from something else, right?
Yes.
There's a separation. I mean, there's divides on roads, right? There's all kinds of divides, and I don't want to, you could say there's guardrails, right? And guardrails, there's good ones, I think, but today, and what in our conversations, the things that you and I talk about while we're eating queso and chips and having a
Yes.
great time are some of these the big issues, the big divides, things that separate it, and that you have to put effort and you work around. And as you work around it, how much waste of energy, mental space, physical exhaustion, all of those emotionally, what
Mhm.
we're wasting to then work around the divide or physically go over or under the divide. But
Yes.
they're all around us.
Ooh, we got to read some good stuff, but I want to answer it, and then I do want to bring in some of the comments, because I think it's going right in the direction that we anticipated it going. So you and I talked, and for me, divide is disconnection. And
Mhm.
so, and visually we see a divide, a gap, a crater, whatever those are. But in my mind, when I think of divide or division, it is disconnection. And
Mhm.
it is, sometimes it's intentional because of the way things are structured. Sometimes it is not intentional, but it's just because we're conditioned to do a certain thing or do it a certain way. And then sometimes that division or that divide is because of our experiences. It is because of just different things that we have felt, or the things that may be traumatic, things that have happened to us, that
Mhm.
we put up walls, and we do not allow there to be that connection, which is so critical in our industry. And just as we're doing other things, like when those divides sometimes are out there and we're causing them.
Mhm.
And so, like, okay, what do we do?
And they start with inside of us
Yes,
individually,
yes, yes. So
right?
that's the divide. That's the one I'm going to stay focused on. You have all these other ideas, and we're going to
Mhm.
continue to talk about those. But what I know is true, and what I see in a lot of places, is those divides within ourselves. And
Mhm.
so that is, again, that's what I'm going to bring a lot of into our conversations, is because of those divides, we're torn, or we feel obligated, or we feel different things that keep us from being able to make the connection
Mhm.
and bridge that, whatever that is. And so that's, to me, it's so important, because if we are divided within ourselves, like, how can we help bridge divides in other places? Like, we're going to be like, oh, I don't know, where do I go? And so I think that is that's a big piece of it, a lot of the things that we're going to talk about today. So we have people that are actually bringing
Yeah, Megan made a great comment.
yes.
She's made a comment about, I think of cultural divides within one, like community, office, business, group, etc. And yes, part of it is cultural, right? There is that part. And then I would even say dive deeper, because what I've been noticing, as I don't like to sit in silence, is even when you have, you know, a cultural community that seems to be aligned, in our industry, right?
Mhm.
Even. there are still things that are like, why is there this? And why are we having to put forth extra effort to go around, to maneuver around and wasting time, energy, and space? Thanks, Paul, for your comment. Yeah, that can happen also. That is a huge topic, our different beliefs and how
What's
that can
diversity? It's
divide
the
us,
things that
right?
we see all the time just in our industry. I mean, things that whether they're talked about or not.
But are we willing to
language,
and are we willing to lean in to those differences? And
right?
I'd say a lot of times we're not. It's like polarizing us instead of us just leaning in, seeking to understand and get curious,
Mhm.
getting curious about the other, right? That might have a different view. Doesn't mean that you have to like go to that view. So
Ooh, ambiguity.
mhm.
Talking about divides and that we're like, are we sending multiple messages?
Mhm.
I like that one, Milo. Thank you. Steve always brings like the fire. He's like, let me just stir the pot a little bit. So Steve says the gap between where you are and where you want to be.
Mhm.
And I think that is, to me, that is so true. But if you are divided inside yourself, which direction do you go? And
Mhm.
sometimes I think it's hard when we see kind of where we want to go. And I think this is a great example. Like you and I talked and you have an idea. And so then we started talking, which then made that idea a lot bigger. And then we're like, well, we're going to do this. And then immediately you went, but it could be this, this, or this.
Right.
And so we're like, okay, so do we get super tight on what we're going to talk about, or do we get wider because there could be ideas and things that we could help tackle that we haven't even thought about yet?
100%. 100%. So I think people are already doing this, but I want to pull up another comment from Paul too, because he hit on one that I think is very generational divides have become very interesting. And that is one that we have definitely been leaning into
Yes.
also. Is what are those, how these generations, if we're not willing to actually take a hard look at generational divide, our industry is going to continue to suffer.
Yes. You and I talked about this specifically. So part of one of my presentations dives into generational differences, and some stats that you and I talked about is this new kind of Gen Z generation right now. And I was presenting on this, and someone in the room goes, and no offense, I'm just quoting, but someone in the room, we were talking about some issues with people coming into the industry, and it's like they're lazy. And I'm like, okay, let's dig into that. What does that mean that they're just lazy? And it's like, well, they don't want to do the work. Okay. So then we started talking more and more. And then what was the work? Well, because their job is to come in, sit at a cubicle. And, for our industry, I think it was, sitting there, whether it's flipping paper or on a computer screen, doing something very, monotonous or whatever it is, that's their job. That's what they got hired to do. This is also a generation that they have grown up through social media. They've grown up through 24-hour news. Everything is instant all the time. So their brain is constantly processing all the time outside of work. And then we are bringing them in and going, sit here, do this job. And it's it's a very one that is not got their brain in that mode. And so they are struggling. And so do we need to go, we know you function this way because this is the way the world works right now. Yet we need you to turn that off and be in a different place. And I'm not at any point advocating that we've got to completely change everything, because we do need them to understand the basic skills and the things that are required for these jobs. But the way we've always done it is not going to work going forward. And so no, and that again, because lean is my space, and lean is how are we addressing things? How are we looking at things to continuously improve, to respect the person, and also how are we eliminating waste? And so waste is, yes, having someone in a position that is not the right fit for them. That's waste. And so how are we addressing these things in our industry to be able to, we've got a massive group of people that not only are just entering our industry, but that in the next 10 years will
Are
be
exiting.
and
The
exiting
group,
too.
the
So it's like we've got a
yeah.
group coming in and a group leaving. And so how are we addressing being able to keep them and get them engaged and get them excited about what's happening if we're continuing to do things the exact same way we've always done them?
What I also think is interesting is that we have our views of that next generation, but are we not the ones also forming this next generation? I mean, putting it back on us too,
Yes.
right? Of like what we're doing and what they're growing up in and what that's going to then impact the future. And if the other, you shared a statistic about what's the percentage of the generation that they are having side hustles.
Oh yeah. So the Gen Z
Gen
right now,
Z,
which is yeah. So the one that's coming into the industry and will be coming in for the next 10 years, 62% of them have side hustles.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're not like stopping and like really thinking about that and not just acknowledging it, but leaning into it, you are missing an entire generation that is so eager to go out and do things and make change and create things that there's going to be a point when those side hustles are making more money than they're making at your firm.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not leaning into that, then they will be with you for a short time and then they will be leaving. And so how do you leverage that? What does that look like? If you're not at least stopping and giving that a look and kind of digging into that a little bit, asking the questions to find out where they are, what their passions are, and what they're doing. Yes, it's not, and it's not the hand holding, the coddling, that is not what I'm talking about. I am talking about this is going to be a generation that are moving way faster into places where they're entrepreneurs. They are out there and they are creating things because they see gaps and they see divides and they are trying to help fill them. And they're kind of, it's a little clunky and they're figuring it out along the way. But they are also people that are working within your firms that could be doing some of that for you.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. The other one that we were talking about this week was just also how by 2030, we're going to lose 33% more of our skilled labor. Yep. And so are we leaning into, we already have a shortage in our industry.
Yep.
And so what are we willing to actually lean in and figure out the divides that are there and constantly happening in that space also?
And because of the population of Gen Z versus Gen X and Gen Y, and those ones that are kind of already in the industry, those generations, that number's not going to change. We're not going to all of a sudden get more Gen X or Gen Y. And so as those are going to continue to just move through the system, the only number we can still impact is that generation coming in.
Yeah. It's what's coming behind.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's where I go, we like to point our finger over here, but we have fingers pointing back at us because it's our ability to be able to impact, to be able to change, right?
Yes.
We cannot just keep pointing the finger at them.
So Maria, thank you very much. But Maria and I actually just talked last night. And so it was, some of these conversations have come through on just some changes she's making in her, kind of in her world and what that looks like. And technology is a big one. And she's realized the divide that, and I give her a shout out that she kind of has the answer and there's not one in the industry right now. And so it's like, what does that look like? And how can she help bridge that divide to, to help people and be able to promote that? But absolutely right now, like that, if we're not having these conversations outside of just you and I and this Saturday morning, like there's a miss that's happening right now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you, Paul. Yep. Gen Zers don't come to work for you wanting to be you. You have to excite them to be you. So for him, and maybe that's not true for all, right? But for him, that's what he's recognized that works. And so fantastic. Because I think what it means is you're getting curious and he's leaning in to what, might actually spark something for them. Okay. So
Love it. Yes, yes, yes. This is okay. So
this is it.
Leave this up here because I want. So right now, what's the big idea? What's the thing that you and I have been chewing on, and we're like, you know what? We're going to throw it out. We're going to talk about it. So before we even talk about what this is, can you? I need you to give a little background just so that we kind of have some context. So when you and I were talking and trying to figure out like, what is this thing? What should we call it? Why does it matter? What is this shift? All this stuff. You kind of gave a little bit of this is historically what's happened in the world, and specifically in the built environment. And we are now at another inflection point that there's another shift happening. What is it? And that is where this big idea of yours and mine came from. So can you give a little bit of background of like how we kind of got to the point of we've got to do something?
There is a lot of shift happening in the industry. If you're not feeling it from technology that is, happening right now, or these divides, these shortages, right, that are happening right now, if you're not feeling it, you must be sleeping through all of it, right? You're not present, you're not in it. But there is so much happening. And as I've been contemplating about it, like I said, I don't sit well in a space. Like I don't sit well and keep my mouth quiet. Like, I don't know if it was just my growing up or how it was, but I don't. And it's really caused me to reflect. I do a lot of that reflection and that idea of a revolution, right? Mm-hmm. The Industrial Revolution was a time when they transitioned from creating goods by hand to using machinery. That's not something new, right? That happened. We are also right now, I believe, in a revolution. This is AI is one of many. Technology is a revolution right now, and it's impacting our industry. And there are some people that are getting on the train and they are riding it. There are many, many that I see that are going to be left behind with the technology and where we are headed in this, what I believe, a revolution. I really think if we forward the clock and fast forward, time, we will look back at this time as a revolution, because it's going to be something that it's going to be marked and stamped in time of this time period of there being a great change. But with that, you and I have already touched on this, and we talk about it all the time. It starts within ourselves, right? It starts with our mindset, but it's not just my mindset. It's not Jen's mindset. It's our industry's mindset. That the mindset and the revolution, the change that has to happen in our industry to be able to actually conquer and actually deal with the divides, lean into those divides, and to make it something that is better than where we found it, and we could just say, hey, that stinks. That turned out that way in that time period. Or are we going to lean in for that change, that revolution? So Jen.
Yes.
When I told you I remember I was having this conversation about the Industrial Revolution and that transition from goods, by hand to machines. What were your thoughts? Were you, what did you?
So one, you and I talk a lot. So there's a lot of times where when we talk and we're like ideating and thinking and really conversating about whether it's specific work things that we are working on together or something you're kind of chewing on or something I'm chewing on. And the common thread through most of our conversations come down to a change in thinking. And so as you said, hey, and it was funny because it was a little bit more focused when you brought this to me and you said, we need to have this conversation with people. And then as we just started talking and kind of continuing to go, it kept getting bigger to where you're like, I don't even know what it is. I'm like, okay. So because of all the things it touched, I think, and then we talked about the revolution and that moment in time to where right now thinking is changing and there's opportunities now. And so it took it from just like a technology conversation, or it took it from a construction conversation to right now, if we look bigger across the entire built environment and technology is weaved into that all over, that right now we are in a place to where if internally we are not thinking differently, if we are not having different conversations with people to get them to see things and consider things and kind of look at opportunities that were never something that they would consider, then again, those people are going to be left behind. Those people are going to be left in a place to where this is what's worked. And just like we talked about generational stuff, like the mindsets of not just us, but those even coming in where they are, leaning into some of that, but also like that cannot be the only thing, that the only gasoline that they run with. Like they've also got to understand kind of some of the, the formative years of what got things where they are right now. And then how can we elevate those? How can we make them better? How can we make that shift and help bridge some of these divides? It is going to be mindsets changing. And so I think when you and I started talking, and I don't think it was mindset, it was something, but then we kind of played around with it for a little bit, and we're like, no, it's this mindset revolution right now of that people's thinking is going to have to change for us to be able to do better, to be able to connect more, and be able to bridge some of these divides in our industry in the built environment. Because like technology's there, and there may be technology, AI, things like that are answers, that are solutions for things.
Definitely.
But if they could just sit there, if there's not someone initiating the use of it, if there's not someone having a conversation and going, this could be a solution, this is, let's have a conversation around that. If we're not having people that are expanding their minds, then none of that matters.
None of it matters. And really, I love it. You said it, but bridging the divides. And I want to point out there's an S in divides, because we're bridging the divides in the built environment. And that is so inclusive of everybody.
Yes.
Everybody that touches projects from start to finish before it ever even gets dreamed of, right?
Yes.
The roads that we drive on, right? The hospitals that we go visit, the classrooms our kids learn in, right? Education facilities. It touches all of us. This is something that we're part of. And this big industry that does amazing work that affect all of us. Mm-hmm. There's so many components of each of that process. And there's a lot of divides in across that entire map also. And so we're really leaning into bridging the divides, plural, in the built environment specifically, and wanting to lean in to those really sometimes uncomfortable conversations in all different parts and facets of it. So this is not a one-time, here it is. No. You guys all got it, and you get to go home now, and you're like, I got this. Yay, I took a magic pill. That is not it, because it's our mindset. It's our industry. And Jennifer and I, we are launching a community that is going to embrace that. We're going to embrace it, and we're going to go on this journey together. We're going to continue. There's many of you that have been on this journey. Like, you've been in it. You've been in this industry a long time, and you actually have already proven to be the problem preventers that I talked about at the beginning. And you haven't just been a firefighter. You have anticipated things. What we're doing is we're trying to rally the troops and get everybody excited, right, about a change, right? And letting them realize the divides that, that I think you and I don't even know that are in front of us.
Right.
We don't have a list. We don't have a list of all the divides we're going to talk about, or as an industry, we're going to discover them together. That's the space we want to create, is a space that we can lean into them together, fall in love with the problems.
Yes. And so again, I saw this is a great question, and I want y'all to think about this, because we're kind of talking about the divides, and I don't think anyone's saying there's not any. So I think we are very aware that there are a lot of divides. And so, like, this is our question to you. How do you find the blind spots in your mindset? We're running there. I'm going to say, I'm looking at we got ballers over here. They are all high performing people, and they are out there doing a lot of big things. And so, and I know I'm one of those people that I will go, 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 go. You are one of those people, you don't sit still very well. So that's I mean, like, how do you find blind spots? Like, what do you do to be able to identify areas in your thinking that maybe are gaps or things that, that maybe are missing, or that there's an opportunity there for you to grow or you to learn and stuff like that. So as we're asking our people that are out there, Laura, how do you find blind spots in your mindset?
Ooh, how do I find blind spots? I mean, that's a big question. One, I think sometimes, sitting still and getting really curious.
Okay.
Right. And I said, I don't sit still very well. That's true. But when I force myself to sit still and get really curious about things that are, maybe some would argue, are outside of what I should be worried about.
Yes.
I'm passionate about marketing. I am passionate about this built industry. Some would say, why do I care about the labor shortage if I am worried about selling and marketing work? Because it impacts what I talk about. It impacts how we're going to organize ourselves. It impacts the future of my children, of generations, right? It definitely impacts. And so getting curious about things that maybe are not in what would be your defined role, right?
That's big.
My job's to design this or make sure this is structurally sound. After that, I don't care. Someone might say, I don't care what else happens. I made sure my job was done, put my stamp on it. But get curious about, I think, other things. And as you do that, what happens is you recognize blind spots that you didn't ever see before. Because you were so focused on your task at hand. Get curious about other tasks. And then actually what you'll notice is there's more things inside of yourself and in your role that are now exposed to you.
Yes.
Have you seen that?
Can I add to that? Can I add to what you said? Because how did this even happen? Laura had a passion. She had something that she was super kind of like, there was something that was a big deal to her. So number one, I want to say is lean into your passions, because sometimes we have roles and we have responsibilities and we have things we have to do. That does not mean that we can't also lean into things that fuel us and light us on fire. And so that's the first one to me, is lean into those things that you're passionate about and that keep you up at night, that you wake up in the morning and that's what's on your mind. They're not going to go away. So they're either going to just frustrate the crap out of you, or they are going to be something that sparks something else. And so you get to have the option of what that thing's going to be. And I'd say if you lean into it, then you're going to create a mindset revolution. You're going to create something that doesn't exist, or something that is going to help things move forward. Number one. And I guess I have three things now. So number two is say it out loud. Yeah. And so right now, how do you find the blind spots in your, in your mindset? So number one is you lean into your passions and you have conversations with people. So you're saying it out loud. The biggest one for me, and I've realized this and I will believe it, it is the number one thing you can do to help find blind spots, is surround yourself with people that will hold up a mirror to you and be honest and be authentic and be transparent and be true. And some of us already know those people that are around us. Some of us don't have those people around us. And if you don't have someone, it's almost like the emperor's, yes. Clothes. It's like, if you don't have the right people around you, they are going to pat your back, attaboy. They're going to, you're doing great, whatever. And it will not change anything that's happening. They will not help you grow. They will not help you evolve. And if anything, they may hold you back, because if you have something that could take you and catapult you forward and they're not there, then they're the ones at the back of the boat, kind of helping kind of trying to sink it, or they're trying to like, no, we don't want to go forward because then that's something different. That's change. That's elevation. That's, recognizing somebody else for something. Like there's people and sometimes I don't even think it's intentional. I think because of how people have been conditioned or status or trauma or things like that, they do it by default. And if we are not being intentional, it doesn't mean like you're not important anymore. I don't care about you. It's if we're not intentional on who is that tribe of people around us that we can say things and we can share things. And Laura, you came to me and you said, we're talking and you're like, here's what I think it should be. And I could have gone, that's great, Laura, let's do it. And I went, I like it, but it's not really what I think we talked about, but what about this, and this? And literally that's how we got to where we are. Like what you said wasn't wrong, but like you need the right people around you to help it be better.
And to hold up that mirror.
Yes. And so I think that is important, in that if we want to go and lean into these spaces, we've got to make sure that we are being intentional with the people we share space with.
Yes. And so what we are asking, we are looking for those people
yes.
that are willing to hold up the mirror, that are willing to lean in and have those intentional conversations, right? And help identify blind spots in this industry, right?
Yes.
That's what we're looking for. We're looking for that community and that group of people. And so if you're vibing with this, then stay with us. If this isn't, you know what? No offense, right? Like you don't have to be part of it.
If it scares you, you could just stay in the background, be a little lurker, kind of watch and see what happens. And there may be an opportunity where something sparks you. That's okay. Like we know that there's going to be all different people, and there's going to be a lot of people that like, I'm kind of interested, but I'm not in a place where I'm about to jump somewhere.
Right.
We understand.
But we're looking for people with all different, that touch every part of this industry, to help hold up the mirrors and identify those blind spots, because we don't know them all. And and it's not that you and I want to have all this knowledge so we can just have it for ourselves. No, we want to identify them and share them with the entire industry. Right. And so like, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that community.
Yes,
that's willing to hold up the mirror. So give a thumbs up.
If this is jiving with you, if you are like, this is my people and we need to have more of these conversations, we need some thumbs up in the comments. So like, again, you don't have to write anything else, but put us, yes. Put those thumbs up over there so we can again lean in and make sure that you are brought into some of these conversations. And we make sure that we can share some things and stuff like that, but we will lean in and ask for your thoughts and your ideas and make sure that you are part of these future conversations as well. So please do that. I think that is super, super important. So those of you that are interested, I know there's a comment also from Kirk I want to bring back up, because I think it was.
Yes. I saw the one about it was further up, about the industry, or about a lot of times revolutions are caused by if you look at these big changes or revolutions, they coincide with great crisis that has a significant impact to create the change.
Okay, let's just stop right there. Why don't you say that again?
If you look at these big changes or revolutions, they coincide with great crisis that has a significant impact to create the change.
Are we in a place of?
We are in this place right now. There is crisis. There's great crisis. We touched on a few of those pieces today of things that are in crisis, right? Shortages, labor shortages, etc. Right? Those are just a handful. But are we willing to dig into it? Because I think a lot of us are actually still really comfortable. Too many of us. And I put myself in that bucket of getting too comfortable.
Well, and I think Maria had another comment that it goes back to that the emperor's clothes, and like, how they weren't willing to hold the mirror up. And I think, let me see. Yeah. That those people usually have their own agendas. And And I think that in itself is another whole conversation on who do you have in your space, who's holding the mirrors up, and also who are those that like, it's not going to benefit me to hold a mirror up to you. So why would I do that?
Why would I do it? Why would I help you?
Yes.
But what we're trying to shift is our industry needs you.
Yeah.
Our industry needs that, right?
Yes.
And
yes.
it's our mindset, our is the entire industry.
Yes.
So let's make that change, Jennifer.
Woohoo, Laura. Okay, so we're look at that reflect. Oh yes, reflecticon. Steve knows we talked about that. There's the deflecticons that like are like just I don't want anything, and then there's the reflecticons. Those people that are like reflections, and we're gonna work with this. I'm gonna reflect back to you. I know, right?
Yeah.
And so I like that. We're gonna lean into that one for sure. And so again, we've got some amazing people that are putting thumbs up. Thank you, Steve.
So Jennifer, tell everyone like how are they gonna find us? When are we gonna see them again?
Okay, so yes, we do. So we're going to kind of start wrapping up some of this for today. I know, Megan, hopefully we answered your question and that we know kind of what our big idea is and what we're trying to do, because I know that was something that was early. And so our goal is scheduled, because I know there's this brain, Laura's brain and my brain, they're a little bit different. And so the scheduled next conversation is going to be in August. I believe it's the 10th on a Saturday morning. And so that's kind of like another one of these conversations, but that doesn't mean that you won't see Laura and I between now and then. And so if you are following me or you're following her on LinkedIn, and then there may be a platform at some point that launches, and then you can follow the platform too. That's our kind of our next step. We did want to throw it out to see if anybody would show up. So there is interest, Laura, and we have people that have thumbs up. So we think this is probably something that we need to lean into. And so, but if you are following us, there may be just some random pop-ups of some videos and some conversations around some of these topics. And we will tag you and we will bring you into those conversations and make sure that we are continuing to lean into these divides and into these gaps and how we can bridge them. And there were some of these comments, Laura, we didn't get to bring them all up. I'm excited about, because each of these people are in different, like kind of cool spaces in the built environment. And so can you really quick, as we're kind of wrapping up and then we'll do final thoughts, but why was it important for you to use the built environment in kind of our tagline and what we're trying to do versus just construction or AEC? Yeah.
One, it's big. Okay. And to see the blind spots, like I said earlier, you have to get curious about all the pieces. And I believe that architecture, engineering, and construction, AEC, what's commonly used, is not all inclusive. It feels like we're like straight up siloing, like creating silos amongst architects, engineers, and contractors, let alone we forgot about our clients, right? In that process, huge impact, vendors, technology, right? Part of that.
Our trades,
our skilled labor that actually is putting work in place, and their skills and talents that they bring. It's all inclusive. And I'm still leaving out somebody from all of that. And so when we say the built environment, it really is everybody that touches that process. Whether you're technical or a supporting role, like non-technical, that's supporting those firms, that's making magic happen, honestly, magic happen and creating things. And so it has to include everyone. So that's why we were very cognizant of using built environment, because it's all of us together in this journey. It's not just one piece's problem. It's the entire industry.
Well, and I want to add that I guess the built environment, there's so many different like webs and ways that it touches even outside of our construction industry.
It does.
Right. And just in the things that people that are coming into the industry And historically, and again, going back to this revolution, because I love some of the ties that we made and how we came up to that our mindset revolution. But the I guess the path that we've taken is it has been that blue collar, it has been that hands-on, it has been that skilled trades, it has been very outward, like what are our outcomes, what are we producing, what, that's how we've been measured.
Yes.
And that's are the things that, and that, for a very long time. And then technology has changed a little bit because it's still outcomes, but it's still kind of in this, this world space. It's not just a I can touch it space. And I think that next transition, that next big shift, that next big revolution is those changing minds. And Steve Lucy has a point of like that, if this is and thank you, Steve. We didn't say it, you said it, so we're going to give you full credit. This is a legacy topic. This is not a Laura topic or a Jennifer topic or like a construction topic. This is a legacy topic because I'm going to tell you right now, you're saying built environment. I have a feeling this conversation is going to even get bigger than the built environment because of what we're talking about. And that we need to leave the industry better than we found it. We need to leave this earth better than we found it. And like 100%. Right now, because of the way that we are doing things, like if we don't start shifting the way we think and the way we treat people and the way we engage and the way we are evolving and growing and learning and helping who's going to be here when we're not here, then we're failing.
We're failing. And I would say, one more thought there is, and maybe this is my final thought, never say final though, right? Is some of you might be thinking, how can I impact that? That sounds really big. And I would say, you can lean into it, share your perspective, share your view. That's how we identify these blind spots. That's how we make things better. That's how we're going to leave things better than we found them in this legacy. I don't want to look back in those 100 years and look back at this time period saying, I didn't speak up. I didn't lean in and make the industry have conversations, right? Because I think we need everybody in it. So there's nobody who should feel like I got to sit on the outside circle of this conversation. We are all in the conversation together.
Yes.
So if you're willing to participate, jump in, join us.
Yes. Okay, so I'll do final thoughts because there's a couple of things that Mike, thank you. A couple of things that I want to challenge you with, but also like that we're just launching something. So this is going to be, again, we don't even know what it's going to be, but we feel very passionate that it's going to be bigger than I think we can even wrap our head around right now. And so number one is our mindset revolution. That is kind of that's our big idea, what this could be, community, platform, things like that. So just be looking for that. And if you are out there, because right now this is a story that it is in my brain, and every time I think about situations like this, it brings it up. So Keon said this in a presentation that he went to his kid's school and it was career day. And, and he's in construction. And so he used this example of they go around the room of, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it was influencer, gamer, coder. It was all these things.
YouTuber, right?
I mean, yes. Like, so if that is what the generation is coming up in, and those are things they want to be, and we work in an industry that is going to take a little bit of, a little bit more than some of that. How are we going to bridge that divide? How are we going to bridge what they want to be and how we can connect that? I mean, for us, it's the BDC, it's the goggles, it's the things that there's ways that we can, the BIM, things that we can kind of bridge some of these things. But what are we doing intentionally? And how are we having these in conversations to be able to help educate those that are in junior high, in elementary school, in high school of what are some of those opportunities? And then what are we doing in the industry to change that? And so I think that's a challenge that hopefully this group can kind of dig into a little bit as we keep talking, because right now, Laura, as I'm going to say even before today, but even now, like you're an influencer, but you're also a marketer, but you're also into communications, and you also have some ideas with technology. And so most people don't own and realize that you are an influencer and you can influence the people around you, and you can influence. It doesn't have to just be on a platform. It could also be in the spaces that you're in. And so my ask is like, be aware of that. Think about that. Think about the intentional conversations you're having. And you don't even have to have the answers. Ask the questions.
Get curious.
Ask the questions about the mindsets and the blind spots and the divides, and just see the feedback you get, because we're going to ask you again, and we're going to ask you to share some of that feedback you've received, because I think that's going to help us lean into this topic.
It is. It is.
Awesome.
So we're gonna bridge these divides in the built environment, and we are so excited for all those thumbs up. Thank you so much for your support, for joining us this morning early. Thank you, Rob. Thank you to the many others.
Yes.
Oh, until next time.
I know. Yes. And so we appreciate you showing up today, and we are excited for what this is going to be. So thank you all, and have an amazing weekend.
Yes. Bye, everyone.